Hello everyone, I am Sriganesh. Thank you Leaf for curating this lovely series. I'm very happy to be a part of it. Today I'm sharing some rumination regarding technology and thereafter technology and landscape architecture. I hope it doesn't meander too much. I would like to begin with the weave between technology, technique and landscape architecture. The locating and transporting of water from hillsides for human use has given us the archetype of the Kanat. It's a technology that requires certain techniques to be systematically followed for best results. This was aided by the use of tools like water clocks that recorded the time for which irrigated water would be given to a certain patch of land. Elsewhere around the world, we see historic gardens are relying on hydraulic technology, which is often hidden in plain sight, so that design and delight marched hand in hand. The technique of perspective projection and its counterpart, the anamorphic projection, organize form and space in delightful ways. For example, the garden at Vaux-le-Vicomte or a painting like Raphael's School of Athens. We'll come to that painting in a bit. The perspective cavalier, another method of drawing things in perspective, used to make this map of Paris as it was in the year 1748, gave urban landscapes a three-dimensional quality. And it remained an accurate portrayal and benchmark for 2 centuries after, simply because of the level of detail it could capture. Cartographic techniques and technology like aerial photography came together to help map landscapes so that it could convey the unseen and the interrelated in better ways. In current times, computer-aided design uses software to accelerate human effort. Today, terrain analysis and climate-responsive analysis have become faster, accurate, and have replaced laborious man-hours. Technology also enables easier field verification because it helps us do pattern recognition or grasp patterns, whether it is land cover change or bedrock pattern or groundwater prospects, to name a few. High resolution imaging of the terrain using LiDAR also gives us greater accuracy in communicating risk to land development, especially at project feasibility stages. The year 2023 saw many debates about technology, specifically targeted at artificial intelligence. Artists, music writers, musicians, and writers brought its negative side into public attention, while designers gushed about how it has skyrocketed their creative thinking. There are also doomsday prophets on social media scaremongering about how AI will take away all jobs. The truth is far away from that. But let's look at the human brain on technology. Without being agnostic about tech, there are 3 specific aspects that I would like to talk about. The use of prompts, the illusions of these outputs, and then the most common tool that we use, the black mirror or the smartphone or the pad that we use as our aperture to the world. Language and art of any kind taps into our need to understand and be moved by it. Simultaneously, it pushes us to be comfortable with ambiguity. The human brain plays a huge role in it. Curiosity is an evolutionary trait. Activities and phenomena that generate curiosity activate a deep part of the brain called the hippocampus. When curiosity is satisfied, the brain releases a chemical called dopamine. The dopamine pathway ends in the prefrontal part of the brain, the part that develops the slowest in human beings. Dopamine itself is not a bad thing. It's crucial for long-term retention and recall. But since it dissipates in the frontal part of the brain when it comes in contact with phenomena, it doesn't complete a circuit through it. And therefore the brain feels that it needs more and more of it to complete the circuit, what is also known as a dopamine hit. That is why when doctors speak about it, they recommend finding balance in the age of indulgence. This is getting harder because now experiences are designed to make us go looking for that dopamine hit. It's getting evident in landscape design as well, where there is now a direction to create virtual models of how plants will grow, how they will change over seasons, etc. It's experimental, but it's also treading down a certain path. On the design process front, the promise of getting a better result for one's imagination is also a common hook that many of these programs now give out. One way of doing it is to organize creative process in a step function from a choice of presets, or suggest one if the options permit, which they often do in paid versions. Some other tools expect the person or the user to be articulate and aware of the possible outcome, and therefore they only expect certain prompts for imagining what the person is trying to do. The results can appear surreal or real enough depending on one's inputs. These are all illusions. The cover of the Guns N' Roses album, Use Your Illusion, references an anonymous portion from a masterpiece of Renaissance art. The graphic artist Mark Kostabi, who designed this album cover, got it spot on as a graphic that conveyed look beyond what is visible, which is an undercurrent of many songs in that album. As for that Renaissance painting, it is Raphael's School of Athens. This painting is an imaginary scene depicting some of the most famous philosophers, scientists, artists and mathematicians of the European world from across time brought together in this canvas. It's an immaculate piece of work, remarkable for what it tries to contain and what it tries to connect with. It also lends itself to curiosity, such as imagining how this work could be remade or rethought. And there is a prompt for that, which allows one to do this, and one where the user is careful enough to tell it to copy or replicate Raphael's work. What we get is a result which may have the seeming artistic touch and show the same idea from a different vantage point, which is very exciting. But such approaches also stir debates about whether it has the artist's sensibility apart from the issues of moral, copyright, etc. The question of artistic sensibility is important because Raphael had filled his canvas with an intimate knowledge of each figure in it and their relation to another figure around them. Whereas the AI does this same thing as a gap filling exercise when it changes the vantage point. Whether there is erosion in the meaning of, whether there is erosion in such approaches is an important distinction for the future of such imaginations. Another well-known painting, this time by Claude Lorraine, shows a landscape that has been read as a heroic setting, creating the mood for an allegorical theme. The roots of this painting likely lay in an observational sketch made by the artist. It is tempting to imagine that Claude Lorraine flipped parts of the sketch and had an epiphany for a great work of art 40 years after he made that sketch. While the basis of imagination and representation now is instantaneous, it can be argued that it's not very modern either. William Gilpin's remarks made 200 years ago seem hauntingly prescient because it looks like he's talking about how we thumb flick images on our smartphones. The Black Mirror. The Black Mirror has occult connotation. Mirror, mirror on the wall kind of thing. But it was put to great effect in the pursuit of the picturesque by the use of a device known as the Claude glass or the Claude mirror, misattributed to the artist Claude Lorraine. It's basically a piece of obsidian mounted in a frame and has a curved surface on it. The way to use it was the viewer would look at a scene and then turn their back to the scene and see the reflection in this piece of obsidian. And because of the curvature of the mirror, the scene would appear distorted and hence picturesque. And very quickly, a landscape artist would capture it, and then the landscape designer would convey that onto the ground in a real sense. This is how some of the greatest English gardens have been designed. 300 years later, we are perhaps not very far removed from this idea. Our new black mirrors allow us to see everything from the street in front of us to the smog above us, and programs like websites like Pinterest just tell us this is the kind of design that. Therefore, we increasingly see this world from the aperture of our personal devices. Are we therefore in a brave new world? A short detour through the question of what is artificial intelligence often conjures up images about malevolent beings who have a conscious capability but then become selfish. We mistake tools like Google Lens and Alexa because they give us answers to queries like what is this? Whereas merely what they are simply semantic systems built upon copious amounts of data in order to do pattern recognition and arrive at a very high probability of the answer to the question, what is this? One of the closest definitions of artificial intelligence can actually be understood from the Iron Man movies. We often see Tony Stark interfacing with Jarvis, the AI that he had created, because Jarvis cannot correlate, infer or contextualize. It needs a human interlocutor. Any machine learning or AI can do creative things, but it cannot reflect on it or unravel linguistic, moral or creative ambiguities. We often see this in Iron Man when Tony Stark chides Jarvis, and in doing so he's doffing the hat to the mathematician Alan Turing. Alan Turing and Tony Stark suggest that just because we expect a machine to think, it does not mean thought will emerge. No computer or AI till date has been able to meet Alan Turing's wish that it write a sonnet on the fourth bridge. This is something a human could at least set out to do. In a technology-driven world, it's also getting harder to distinguish between the various truths that we encounter. One can get away with paraphrasing or tweeting it long enough to make it appear as the truth. This is something that you can find in a quote attributed to Jim Morrison, whereas the origins of the quote lie in a book called Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. We are also in an endless simulacrum, and it is getting worse for designers because making now seems so much easier. Whatever happened to the pain of creation? The emphasis now is on skilling, and that is what we are seeing young minds being pushed to do. Navigating such a world as this is not going to be easy. It calls upon oneself to distinguish between fleeting similarities. It throws up challenges as to how soon is it before everything that we do through technology starts looking the same. Many are already saying we've crossed that point. There is also one set of curricula which talks about mastering technology to stay relevant. We have to define relevance with new ways of teaching and learning, which will need to complete connections in the brain that will go beyond a dopamine hit. It calls upon ways to rewire the way we work, rewire the brain through better understanding of things. It calls upon revisiting soft skills and finding ways to develop critical thinking in the light of technology. Perhaps even value negative feedback that technology can throw us. For example, flight simulators do not say danger or pull up politely. Working with technology also begins from a place of But what technology demands is also transparency, to be able to see how things come together so that the output gets a justification. Transparency was the reason why McHagh's method gained so much traction. The transparency pun is unintentional. What we can foresee is that there are many shifts happening on the cusp of happening. The contours of the profession and the way we practice, it's already grappling with extremities of embracing technology or seeing it as a silver bullet. But it will also level the field for the small office, which is decidedly tech savvy. And it's this kind of a small office which can give the big guns a run for their smarts. What is also likely to happen is a new type of landscape architect, the big data person, someone who's into computing, mathematics, number crunching, statistical wisdom, and looks at large-scale ecological modeling. It can weave many tech-enabled professions into the practice of landscape architecture and thus make transdisciplinary impact measurable. So in the end, everything about landscape architecture is actually a pursuit. Long, long ago, the words of the divine described a garden. If we see this in today's times as a prompt, then it assures us that its pursuit has kept landscape architecture enriched. Technology can be purist or futurist, but if it is used well, it can conserve, nurture, and delight. Technology then is a garden. Thank you.